What does it mean to be a star? According to Hedy Lamarr, the ravishing 1940s movie star known as the most beautiful woman in the world, to be a star is to own the world and all the people in it. Hedy once said, "I've been an important star and lived a full life, yet I have only 3 friends." I guess that's all anyone can expect. Meanwhile, Hedy's fellow screen diva Greta Garbo said that being a star means being looked at from every possible direction. You are never left at peace. You're just fair game. Ingrid Bergman, the glamorous star of Casablanca, had a slightly more positive take. She said that being a star means you can always get a table in a full restaurant. And more recently, Lady Gaga offered her perspective on stardom. She said, "I really wanted to be a star, and I was almost a monster in the way I was fearless with my ambitions." As these women describe it, stardom is isolating and powerful and monstrous. It means striving and struggling and scheming and always being ready for your close-up. Most of us live a long way from Hollywood, but that doesn't mean that we're immune to the lures and discontents of stardom. There are stars here at Yale too. Star students, star professors, star athletes, prize winners, fellowship winners, contest winners, people who get into shining societies, glittering singing groups, people who get scintillating internships and shimmering jobs, people who write brilliant books and sparkling articles, who emit the glow of fame and tenure. It's hard to be at Yale without sensing some of the power and isolation of stardom, without experiencing the monster of ambition in ourselves or in others. There's a lot of striving and scheming and scrutiny in the Yale galaxy. And sometimes it seems that in order to be a star, you need to outshine the people around you. You can't be a variable star. You need to shine consistently like the sun, without wavering or flickering. And whatever you do, you can't be a shooting star and fall through the sky. You can never fade into a red dwarf or collapse into a black hole, even if sometimes you might want to. Today is the 5th Sunday in Epiphany, the Christian season of stars. It's the season after Christmas in the church calendar, the season when we remember the star that the wise men followed to Jesus. And it's the season we read starry scriptures like the ones today from Psalms and Isaiah. You will not be surprised to learn that the authors of Psalms and Isaiah define stardom a little differently than Ingrid Bergman and Lady Gaga and Yale. Today, I'm going to talk a little about their version of stardom. But before I do, there's something I have to tell you. It's a little personal, but it's important for you to know. According to the Bible, you are a star. I am a star. We are all stars. When God promised Abraham that God would give him descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, he was talking about us. Our congregation is a constellation. Think about it. Okay, let's hear what the psalmist and the prophet have to say about being stars. Listen. God determines the number of the stars. God gives to all of them their names. God stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to live in. Lift up your eyes on high and see, who created these? God brings out their host and numbers them, calling them all by name. Because God is great in strength, mighty in power, not one is missing. So, according to the scriptures, what does it mean to be a star? Or maybe a better question is, what does it mean to be stars? Because the first thing we learn about stars is that there are a lot of them, and they get talked about together. And what makes them so bright is not their individual glow, but their collective glory. It's the way they come together in constellations and gather in galaxies. The stars are a mass gospel choir of light, and they don't sing solo. The book of Job tells us that when God laid the cornerstone of the earth, the morning stars sang together, and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy. If you're a star shining in God's sky, you are not like Hedy Lamarr, shining cold and alone and settling for just 3 friends. Instead, you are part of a heavenly host, joining your light and voice to the rest of the universe, part of the brightness and beauty of all of God's creation throughout time and space. You are basking in the brightness of the stars around you, and they are basking in the brightness of you. And together you are making celestial harmonies and forming yourself into dazzling patterns. When you're working in your dorm room late at night, you might think that you're alone. You might think that the paper you're writing only matters to you and your professor, or maybe it just only matters to you. You might think that the only light you're producing is the faint light shining from your laptop screen, and whatever dim logical illumination you can shine on macroeconomics or the history of sexuality. But if you are a star in God's heaven, and you're shining for God's glory, the work that you're doing in your dorm beams a stream of light that joins with the light of stars all over the sky. It joins the glow emitted by an immigrant in East Haven who is battling police brutality with courage and faith. It joins the gleam of a sleep-deprived mother in India who is praying for healing for her sick toddler. And it joins the luminescence of unknown saints across the world and throughout the ages who tried and are trying to do God's will. And together, you all make a pattern you might not even know about. Your combined light illuminates this dark world and helps the lost navigate in the night. It's not a competition. It's a constellation. The other important thing to know about stars is that they are all named by God. God creates them all and calls them all by name. Lady Gaga may have needed to create herself through a monstrous effort, and she may have needed to rename herself as well. But most of us can rest secure in the knowledge that we already exist. We are already stars, and we are already ourselves because we have been named and called by God. Isaiah tells us about the vast universe of stars with God-given names to tell us something important about ourselves and each other. If God has named all the stars, if God's eye is on the sparrow, if God clothes the lilies of the field, if not a hair can fall from our head without God's knowledge, then we are not just interchangeable balls of energy burning at a certain temperature and emitting a certain amount of light. Instead, we are Castor and Pollux, Asterion and Talitha Borealis, Nashira and Sinistra, Regulus and Sirius. We are Shao and Bobo, Heather and Lauren, James and Jonathan, Caitlin and Kevin, Annabelle and Abby, Marilyn and Debbie, Michelle and Jamie. We are all shining together, and we are each known and loved and called by name from the beginning of the world. Maybe you remember the moment when you were a kid and you realized that everyone else had thoughts and feelings too, and that they were just as important as yours. It's still so overwhelming and necessary to realize that there are as many perspectives as there are people, and that every name represents a being created by God. If we are all stars, then we need to lift our eyes on high and see each other as the heavenly beings that we are. We need to see each other through starry eyes. And when we do, we will see every crowd, every class roster, every list of contacts, every email list, every list of the imprisoned or deported or wounded or dead, as a picture of a shining night sky. Each name is eternal and luminous and precious. We need to keep reminding ourselves that we are all glorious and luminous, that we are all called to shine out with all of God's children everywhere, because sometimes this can be hard to see with the naked eye. There is a lot of light pollution these days, and the fluorescent lights of Yale and the neon of Hollywood can blind us to some of the stars that we most need to see. The star in the east that guides us to Jesus, the North Star that guides us out of slavery into freedom, and the cluster of stars shining next to us on the pew. I'm going to leave you with some inspired words from Earth, Wind, and Fire that will hopefully stick in your head this week and remind you to remember who you really are. If you find yourself in need, why don't you listen to these words and heed? Be you giant or grain of sand, words of wisdom are, yes, I can. You're a shining star, no matter who you are, shining bright to see what you could truly be. Or, in the words of the Apostle Paul, be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation in which you shine like stars in the world. Sisters and brothers, let's not ask for the moon or the sun or the spotlight or the limelight. We have God and we have each other. We have the stars. Amen.